Are you a new lifter who is tired of wandering the wilderness of online programs to find a beginner powerlifting program that actually makes sense? Guess what? I got one for you, and I wrote it, and it's for free. So let's talk about the Black Bear Barbell Beginner Powerlifting Program, what a mouthful, and whether or not it is a program that is right for you, and also how you can get it. This is a program that I wrote on Boostcamp. It's a great app. You can click the link in my description to get access to Boostcamp. You can use code BlackBearBarbell to get an extra week of premium, but I mean, you don't have to if you don't want to, but who doesn't want free stuff? This is a program that runs 12 weeks. And like I said at the top, it is a beginner powerlifting program. So if you have been in this sport for a year or more, my apologies. I've got a ton of videos catered to you, but this is for the newbies out there. We love getting new people in the sport. So if you're interested in starting powerlifting, I think this is the program for you. I brought a ton of athletes from their first day in powerlifting all the way up to intermediate to advanced stages. And with all that expertise, I think I have designed a program that is going to cover all the bases and help get your feet wet in the sport of powerlifting and also get you stronger and looking a little bit more jacked. So what we're going to do today is go day by day with the program, talk you through each day, and hopefully entice you to run this program and let me know what you think. So let's start with day one of the Black Bear Barbell Beginner Powerlifting Program. We are starting out with a squat and a bench press day. This is a powerlifting program, so we're going to have a lot of double compound movement days. If you're new to the sport of powerlifting, which I hope you are, we want to try and get as good as possible with the squat, the bench, and the deadlift, because that is what we compete in, and that is what we're going to test on competition day. So the more exposures we can have to those lifts safely and efficiently, the better it's going to be 9 times out of 10. So we want to combine a lot of those lifts. I also find that newer people to the sport of powerlifting are often shocked by doing all 3 of those lifts back to back in competition. So we want to expose you to what it feels like to do a squat and then a bench press, or a bench press and then a deadlift, or all 3 back to back to back, so that you can be ready for what it feels like on competition day. We're going to start with our squat, 1 by 5 at 70% of your 1 rep max. This program utilizes percentages for a lot of it because as a beginner, it's a lot more difficult to gauge rate of perceived exertion, or RPE. You may have heard that term somewhere. It just means how difficult was that set on a given day. It becomes a lot easier to accurately pick weights if you're using a percentage of your 1 rep max. I also understand that as a beginner, you may not have a 1 rep max. We can start with the calculators online. They're not great, but they're a good place to start. And then if you feel like you are chronically undershooting, meaning you're not getting the stimulus that you want day by day by day, you can add 5 to 10 pounds to your squat and your deadlift, and maybe just 5 pounds to your bench press. And I would do that to your estimated 1 rep max so that your percentages follow suit. So we're also going to utilize a concept called back down sets, which is a lot of how we program with powerlifting. We want to have a high end exposure to a heavy weight, and then we want to do back down volume, because there are many ways to progress and volume is one of them, but we may not be able to do a lot of volume, meaning a lot of work, with that same level of intensity that we did for our top set. So after our top set of 5, we're going to do 2 back off sets, descending each time of 7 reps. Now, as we move into our secondary movement of the day, I didn't want to leave you high and dry with just percentages, so we are actually going to utilize our RPE with our secondary movement, and that is our paused bench press. We're going to pause all of our bench presses because that is competition standard, so that's what we're going to do. As the writer of this program, I understand that RPE selection can be very difficult when you're not used to being in the gym. So what I want you to think about is, instead of adding a number to it, just say, if it's an RPE 6 or an RPE 7, was this a 6 out of 10 on the difficulty scale or a 7 out of 10 on the difficulty scale, and go all the way up from there. Ask yourself that. Try to be as honest with yourself as possible. Don't get caught up in the weeds about reps in reserve or rate of perceived exertion. Just put a 6 out of 10, put an out of 10 scale where you see RPE, and I think that that will help you start to determine what your actual rate of perceived exertion is. I think it's a good way to get your feet wet, so that is what I would recommend. Then we're moving on to our accessory movements. The accessories in this program are a wide variety of basic supplemental movements. So you're not going to get a lot of crazy, 21s on the bicep curl. You're not going to get a lot of like supersets or giant sets. We're going to be basic. There's a little bit of supersets and there's maybe 1 or 2 giant sets, but we're not going absolutely crazy because this is your first time training for powerlifting. So why would we use all of our tools in our toolbox on day 1 when just a hammer and some nails is gonna get the job done. And it's gonna keep us feeling a little bit better as we go. Moving into day 2, we've got our deadlift. And guess what? We're bench pressing again. So we have to now understand, how does it feel to deadlift and then bench press without fatigue? But good news, we are not utilizing the same level of intensity with our bench press that we did on day 1. So you're gonna be totally fine. When we deadlift and with all of our primary movements, we're using our percentages like we talked about on day 1. We're gonna do 1x4, meaning 1 set of 4 reps on our primary top set, and then we're gonna do our back down work, 2 sets of 6. These are some terms that you should come to know and to love, because a lot of coaches use this terminology: 1x4, top sets, back down sets. If you have any questions on the terminology, hit me in the comments, join our Discord. We would love to help get you in with the lingo. I feel like somebody should write a powerlifting dictionary so that people know what all this stuff means. Then we're gonna move on to our legs up bench press, or our feet up bench press, whatever's more comfortable for you. I'm not super concerned about that. This is a variation on a bench press that is going to allow you to utilize more of your chest, not use a lot of leg drive. It's just a variation to get your feet wet with many of the variations with the bench press and with other lifts that you are going to come in contact with as you progress on your bench press journey. And once again, on this day, we have our supplemental movements. I'll let you read them here. They're up on the screen behind me. They are basic. We're talking white bread and mayonnaise, but these are the basics that work. We don't need to get crazy. Like I already said, just do the basics and do the basics really well, and you will get very far. Day 3, we're back to squatting. We're gonna do our squat for paused reps. Now, we're gonna pause in the hole of the squat, meaning when you get to the bottom of the squat, you're gonna pause for about a second, then you're gonna come back up. Because we're pausing, that allows us to understand how our body moves in space a little bit more. But because we're pausing, the movement gets a little bit more difficult. So we're just gonna use 60% of our 1 rep max, and we're gonna do 3 sets of 5. This is not your primary way to gain strength. That's what the primary squat is for. This is more so to pinpoint some weaknesses maybe in the movement, to allow you to get more comfortable with the movement, to understand how your body moves in space. So keep that in mind when you're doing your paused reps. Then we're back to bench press, and we're gonna go back to our primary bench press, 3x6, with 70% of our 1 rep max. So we're actually gonna utilize percentage on this day rather than RPE. We have our first caveat, or our first wrinkle with our accessory movements on today's training. We're gonna use ascending RPE sets with our dumbbell overhead press. Now, all this means is you're gonna start with a weight that you think is gonna be a 6 out of 10 in difficulty, and you're going to ascend to a 7 out of 10 and then an 8 out of 10. This is another way that you can get exposure to RPE, because you can ask yourself, okay, was that really a 6 out of 10? I've got an opportunity to change things now on my second set with a 7 out of 10. Should I go up 5, 10, maybe even 15 pounds? Maybe I really undershot my first set. That's why I like ascending sets, especially for beginners, because it helps you to ask the question. That's all we need to do when we're talking about RPE, is ask the question, was this difficult enough? And will I be able to recover from this? That's what we need to ask ourselves. And then we're back to some normal, basic accessories. Our 4th and final day, we are back to deadlifting, but we're gonna use pause deadlifts. And as I said with our squat, our pause deadlift is just to understand how our body moves in space. I would recommend that you pause about an inch off of the floor, pause for a good second, and then finish the rep. Because these are pause reps, and pause reps can get a little hairy and they're pretty difficult, we're only doing a 3x3, meaning we're doing 3 sets of 3 reps at 65% of our 1 rep max, our estimated 1 rep max, just to get your feet wet. Man, I've said that a lot, but your feet are gonna be soaked by the end of this program. Just to get you an exposure to what pausing your deadlifts feels like. Again, learn how you move in space. Try and maintain good posture, a rigid upper back, solid leg drive, solid hinge throughout the movement, and then have that paused deadlift carry over to your primary deadlift, whether you're sumo or conventional. And then we're gonna finish off with a lot of our accessory movements. We have a superset on here, and we have a superset on a couple other days. In Boost Camp, a superset is super easy, and it's indicated well for you. You will know what a superset is because Boost Camp is a great app, and it does all that for you. Our superset is gonna be band pull-aparts and face pulls. All a superset is doing 2 exercises back to back with minimal rest in between. I would take about 3 to 4 breaths and then jump into your second exercise. You're going to have to choose weight that is a little bit lower, especially on your second exercise, so that you can make it through, because you will be pre-fatigued from your first exercise. Just something to keep in mind. So that's each individual day. But let's talk about a little bit of the program structure for the 12 weeks so that you know what you're getting into. We're going to do 4 weeks of overloading, followed by a deload week for the first 10 weeks of the program. That means we're going to progress each week in terms of weight, maybe volume and intensity. And then we're going to deload, meaning we're going to take some of that weight away so that we can recover. We can get a little bit of that fatigue off of us. And then we're going to repeat the cycle up to week 10. Then we're going to come back in week 11, we're going to re-engage with heavier weights so that we're a little bit primed. And then we're going to test our 1 rep maxes in week 12 so that you can finally move off of the estimated 1 rep maxes and start utilizing your actual 1 rep maxes so that you can get your feet wet a little bit with what it feels to actually push yourself through a 1 rep max test. Very basic stuff, but I think it is a great way to get started in powerlifting, and I hope you agree. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it if you made it this far in the video. I hope this program works very well for you. If you're looking for something a little bit different, you can click on this video right here for another one of our program reviews. Please join our Discord. Link to Bootcamp is in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Get strong and stay strong.